Good evening, YouTube. Just your favorite baby boomer. I'm back with another one from Karoline Leavitt, White House press briefing. So we're going to see what she has to say. This one is 36 minutes long. I'm not so sure how much I'm going to have to interject, but I probably will, like I always do. And let's see where we are. A lot of consternation out of there. I got to tell you that the criticism on the president is starting to grow, which is kind of fair enough. I think he's everybody likes to swashbuckle and I'll say anything I need to say. But I think sometimes he's been kind of going a little bit further than he needs to get the point across, right? And so we have a lot of unnecessary kind of shit going on, but based on what he says with all the people who hate him. But I understand why he does it. Sometimes he fires for effect. Sometimes I wish he was kind of be a little bit more reserved on a couple of things, but focus on the main thing and getting the main thing right. So we'll see what Caroline has to say. I didn't see any of this stuff before, so I'll be seeing it in real time, at least for me. For the first time, I should say, as we go through her speech. She's going to go through all kinds of wrap ups that we've heard before from her point of view and from the president's point of view. But, such is life. So let's hear what she has to say. And we're going to go from there. All right. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello. Some new faces in here today. As we approach the end of the year, it is a great time to reflect on how much progress our country has made under President Trump's bold leadership. Given the complete mess that President Trump inherited from Joe Biden and radical left Democrats in Congress, what this administration has accomplished since January 20th has been nothing short of remarkable. While most politicians promise big on the campaign trail and break those promises once they get into office, President Trump promised big and has delivered even bigger. On the economic front, after inheriting the worst inflation crisis in over 4 decades, President Trump's pro-growth policies are making tremendous progress to make America affordable again. Under the painful Biden years, inflation reached a record high 9% and devoured Americans' purchasing power. In President Trump's term thus far, inflation has dropped to an average of just 2.7%, marking critical progress. The Trump administration is working hard every single day to bring down the cost of living through bigger paychecks and lower prices. Real wages are finally on the rise again and on pace to increase to roughly $1,200 for the average American worker this year. To put that into perspective, real wages declined by almost $3,000 under the Biden administration. That means Americans right now are on track already to make up 1/3 of the $3,000 in lost wages under Joe Biden. There's much work to do, but this has already been significant progress.
Yeah, well, here's the one thing though. The words sound good, and they might even be true with the reduction of inflation, but the actual money that goes into the people on Main Street from the Main Street pockets, they need to see something more tangible. Like even gas prices, there's no doubt that gas prices are a lot cheaper, but the connection on the money that they save from gas, depending on how much you have to drive, how does that connect to the fact that maybe, the same kind of food you buy this year is a little bit more expensive than what you bought, and I mean, it happens every year. The prices just kind of go up. So I'm just thinking the messaging needs to be connected a little bit better. And I think it's really tough to do that when there's so much noise in the marketplace too. And I know a lot of that's being done by your haters, but I think the message is not getting across. I mean, in the big cities, a lot of people don't drive. They don't have to. So they don't see the benefits of the gas prices going down as much as they have, unless you're a real driver and you got to do a lot of distance every day.
President Trump has also delivered resoundingly on his promise to end Joe Biden's insane war on American energy. and make sure our country has reliable and affordable energy produced right here at home. As a result, the nationwide average for regular gas just fell to its lowest level in nearly 5 years. According to data from Gas Buddy released on Monday, average gas prices have now dipped below $3 per gallon in 37 states, below $2.75 per gallon in 22 states, and below $2.50 per gallon in 5 states. Just a few years ago, we saw record high price gas of nearly $5 per gallon. American families faced constant pain at the pump, and those costs caused the price of everything else to go up as well. In fact, the average cost for a gallon of regular gas in the country was the most expensive price during a presidential term in U.S. history under Biden's disastrous leadership, even with them recklessly draining our strategic reserves to try and artificially decrease prices. But thanks to President Trump, those days are long behind us. In the months ahead, Americans can expect prices to fall even further. We know that when gas gets cheaper, everything else gets cheaper too. And that's what this president is focusing on. Americans can also expect another boost to their bank accounts in the months ahead as 2026 tax refund season is upon us after the holidays, and it's projected to be the largest ever thanks to President Trump's passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. According to recent analysis from Piper Sandler, when Americans file their taxes early next year, their refunds could be about 1/3 larger than usual, or roughly an extra $1,000 per filer. That is money straight into the pockets of the American people. It's only because of President Trump and Republicans' leadership that Americans will now pay no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. President Trump and Republicans believe hardworking Americans deserve to keep more of their hard-earned money, but Democrats, on the other hand, every single one of them voted against these massive tax cuts. So remember that the next time Democrats try to talk about affordability. Democrats don't have a single clue about how to make America more affordable. They just spent the last 4 years creating the very affordability crisis that President Trump is fixing right now. And if given the chance of power ever again, the Democrats will implement those same policies and jack inflation right back up to where it was. Finally, at the border, President Trump has restored America's sovereignty and made our country safe again. This is the single greatest and fastest national security victory in modern American history, and it's not even close. The latest preliminary numbers released from the month of November show we have the most secure border in our nation's history. This is a remarkable achievement. November encounters came in even lower than the previous historic low in October, if you can believe it. There were only 30,367 total encounters nationwide. That's lower than the previous record set in October. And for the 7th consecutive month, U.S. Border Patrol released 0 illegal aliens into the United States. Let me repeat, 7 months of 0 illegal aliens being released into our country. This is a historic achievement, and it's one that every law-abiding American citizen should be grateful for.
Listen, I tell you, the immigration situation is the biggest thing that's on my plate, besides all the immoral shit that the liberals want to do to children and, female sports and that kind of stuff. But there's one thing that the Republicans have failed to do, and they need to take a page out of the Democrats' book. There is no way that states who've declared themselves sanctuary cities that have to go head to head against federal policy to me, they're unconstitutional. I don't see why the Republicans didn't find activist judges that are on the right to put nationwide injunctions against states declaring themselves sanctuary cities. I mean, how the hell did y'all let that happen? I mean, it should have never happened in the first place, but it's not too late to rectify it. I mean, if we can get podunk asshole judges to keep a guy who's clearly an illegal alien in the United States, this Abrego Garcia guy, I mean, that means you can pretty much put an injunction against a ham sandwich. So how come the Republicans have not declared sanctuary cities unconstitutional and make that fight all the way up to the Supreme Court? That's what I'm saying. I mean, so Republicans have been sleeping on a switch to put the full twist on immigration and immigration policy against the liberals. You haven't really done everything you're supposed to do. You should be fighting dirty as well. You really should be.
At this point, in 10 months under President Trump's unmatched leadership, we've seen less apprehensions overall than we saw in just 1 month under Joe Biden. Again, let me repeat, in 10 months under President Trump, we've seen less apprehensions at the southern border than we saw in 1 month under the previous president. Again, remarkable results. All in all, the economy is back on track and ready to boom over the next 3 years. Biden's inflation crisis is over. Prices are coming down. Wages are rising. The border is fully secure, and America's best days are to come. President Trump has kept his word and delivered for the American people over the past year, and he will not stop fighting, as you heard from him directly this week, until our country and every state in this country is better than ever before. So with that, I will take your questions today. I know there's a lot of news. We'll start with our new media seat. Mr. Bowling, it's great to see you here. He's of Real America's Voice. He's also the host of Edge, his interview and commentary podcast. Please, Eric, why don't you kick us off?
Karoline, thank you very much for this and inviting me to the new media seat. As you point out, affordability crisis, it strikes me energy prices have been coming down aggressively since President Trump's second term, approaching $55 a barrel for oil, gasoline, as you point out, under $3 a barrel nationally, first time in 5 years. By the way, that $55 barrel oil is about half of the peak under the last 4 years of the last administration, half the price. Wholesale prices come down, yet affordability crisis. A lot of the folks in this room, a lot of legacy media, some people in the front row, seem to want to call this an affordability crisis right now, forgetting the fact that over the last 4 years prior, we hit 9% inflation. Wages, as you point out, were stagnant at best, sometimes had dipped. That's a real affordability crisis there, but they weren't really calling it that then. You point out how President Trump is changing the affordability in America, but how will he ensure that the legacy media doesn't flip the script and change it so that they're using affordability as their word, their idea versus what the American people who...
Yeah, you know what he's trying to say, messaging. The messaging on affordability has been pretty bad from the Republicans. Just saying gas prices have come down, which is true, it still doesn't it doesn't pull a string all the way to the people who want to feed their family. And especially if you talk about people who don't own cars, who don't use, oil or gas, or at least directly, they can't see how that benefits them. They don't understand that the cost to produce is going down, and it's a lagging indicator before it gets to the prices of the things that's being produced. They can't see that.
Know much better.
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Eric, and it's a point of frustration for the president and for myself. I will say that's part of the reason I just kicked off this briefing today, setting the record straight with facts about the economic mess that the president inherited from his predecessor, Joe Biden. And he's focused on digging our country and our economy out.
You know what? Here's another thing. I don't know when it has to stop, and I know everybody does it, every new president. At some point, the connection to how bad Biden was has to be severed, right? You're almost a year in. Some of the things are so lax, it's still impacting your administration. But at some point, you got to start the narrative with saying, this is what we're doing now. If you could remember what happened 4 years ago, great. But this is what we're doing now, and this is where we're taking you from. And just go back in your memory banks and think where you were 4 years ago and think where you are now. Because just going back blaming Biden for everything, at some point, it's going to get old.
Of that hole
if it's
every
not
day.
old already.
Things are getting better, and they will continue to. And President Trump understands better than any politician in this city the pain that the American consumer has been feeling for years now because of the last administration's policies. You heard him in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania this past week, campaigning and talking to these voters, saying, I was elected to fix this problem, and I am fixing it. Don't forget who created it, and that's the Democrats. And I think when you hear the president talk about affordability, he's saying the Democrats are the greatest con artists in history because they are now trying to claim ownership of an issue that they created. And every data point and every economic metric does in fact show that the economy is improving. And so I do wish more people would report on those facts. I do wish that more people would remind the American public how we got here and why. It does not mean this president is discarding the feelings of the American people. He gets it better than anyone, which is why his entire administration has been focused on the issue of the economy and energy prices since day one.
If I may
Sure.
follow up. It's reported that around 10,000 commercial driver's license operators have been pulled by your transportation secretary department. Will the president apply that same metric? For the reason was the operators weren't speaking or reading English to a level that was safely, people thought they would safely be able to operate trucks on our roadways. It's estimated in California around 40% of Uber and Lyft drivers don't speak English proficiently, and the number's 45% in Minnesota. Will this same rule or metric apply to the gig economy like Uber and Lyft?
So I don't have any announcements on further regulations, if you will, from the Department of Transportation with respect to this issue. However, I will just reiterate the Trump administration's position is that truck drivers, particularly those driving big rigs on our nation's road and highways, who have a great responsibility to keep the American public and their fellow citizens safe, should be speaking English and should have an ability to read English proficiently. I think that's a very common sense policy to have. And we've unfortunately seen, and the Department of Transportation has uncovered and is actively working to fix these state-sponsored commercial trucking driver licenses, which were going to people who are not qualified to be driving these massive trucks on American roads, and they're endangering the lives of our fellow citizens. We've unfortunately seen many vehicle accidents across the country where people have lost their lives because of drivers that were just simply unqualified to be driving these trucks. So
yes, one thing at a time. Ubers and Lyfts, the fact that some of these people can't speak English is not the real problem, other than the nuisance that they can't speak to you. But the truck drivers, those CDLs, man, that's huge, man. I wouldn't even water that down with anything else. Get these guys off the road. One of the things that I've noticed now is that when you look at it, I think everybody should be cognizant of when a truck is behind you. Period. I mean, sometimes you just been driving so long. I never really just, you trust everybody else on the road. But if you got to stop and, you want to stop in a lane where you don't have to worry about a truck being behind you, right? Or coming behind you. Like if I'm going through a toll booth or if I'm going somewhere where I got to stop, I'm going to let the truck get in front of me or whatever, because there's no way out if this guy is one of these crazy dudes who is not paying attention. You're just smashed. So it doesn't happen often, but man, those trucks are dangerous. And if they have thousands of people on the road who shouldn't be on the road, I don't know how much ignorance is bliss. Not everybody knows. It's just kind of scary. If not for you, for your loved ones and stuff like that.
I know this is something DOT and Secretary Duffy take very seriously. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline.
Well, by the way, I've seen a lot of presentations with the Secretary of Transportation. You talk about, I think he's light years better than Pete Buttigieg was. Light years. If people are talking about cabinet picks or whatever, that dude is pretty slick, man. Anyway, so let me just leave that there.
Based on the way that things stand right now, is Operation Southern Spear about drugs or is it about oil?
What I will tell you, Peter, is that the Trump administration is focused on doing many things in the Western Hemisphere.
Mhm.
The president has taken a new approach that has not been taken by any administration for quite some time to actually focus on what's going on in our own backyard. And there are two things that are very important to this administration. Number one, stopping the flow of illegal drugs into the United States of America, which we know has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. The president promised on the campaign trail that he would demolish the foreign terrorist organizations and drug cartels around the world, especially right here in our own hemisphere. And you have seen that he is delivering on that promise. With respect to the oil and what happened yesterday, the Department of Justice requested and was approved for a warrant to seize a vessel because it's a sanctioned shadow vessel known for carrying black market sanctioned oil to the IRGC, which you know is a sanctioned entity. So the president is committed to stopping the illegal flow of drugs into our country. He's also fully committed to effectuating this administration's sanction policy. And that's what you saw and the world saw take place yesterday.
And because he said the president is trying to do a lot of things at once, he talks a lot about how he thinks the way to bring down prices for everything would be to bring down the cost of energy. Would he use this seized Venezuelan oil to try to help Americans with affordability here in the United States?
Well, what I can tell you right now, the vessel has been seized, as you know. And the Department of Justice did that in conjunction with the Coast Guard and the Department of War. The vessel is currently undergoing a forfeiture process right now. The United States currently has a full investigative team on the ground on the vessel, and individuals on board the vessel are being interviewed and any relevant evidence is being seized. With respect to the oil, that's a different issue. As you know, Peter, the vessel will go to a U.S. port, and the United States does intend to seize the oil. However, there is a legal process for the seizure of that oil, and that legal process will be followed.
And just my last one on this. If President Trump launches a bigger military campaign in the Caribbean, is he jeopardizing a possible Nobel Peace Prize?
Look, the president has proven over the past year that he is more than worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize. I think he's been nominated for it.
To hell with the Nobel Peace Prize, man. Get the hell out of here, man. You know, I know this guy's those up the softball questions. I can dig it. But you know what? This shit is, nobody cares about the Nobel Peace Prize but the president. You know, I mean, if you got to wage war, you're not supposed to get the daggone damn Peace Prize. So let's kind of, I know she has to answer the question. It's a softball question, but you know, who gives a shit, man?
Nearly 100 times this past year, which is definitely a record. He's solved, I think, 9 conflicts around the world. We are up to now. He's actively working on the Russia-Ukraine war, which is the big one as we speak, and has been over the past year. With respect to any additional action in Venezuela, I'm definitely not going to get ahead of the president or the United States military. Mary.
It now seems all but certain that the Obamacare subsidies will expire at the end of the year. It means more than 20 million Americans are now bracing for their health care costs to soar. Is the president prepared to let this happen, or is he going to step in?
The president is prepared to take action on health care, and he wants Republicans on the Hill to do the same. As you have seen, Senate Republicans put forth their own legislation earlier this week. As for the subsidies that are set to expire, I would like to remind you and everybody at home why this is on the brink of happening. Democrats wrote Obamacare. They passed it without a single Republican vote, and then they ballooned it with these expensive COVID subsidies that completely distorted the health insurance market. And then they doubled down, extending those subsidies and setting their own expiration date right now in 2025, which the administration is obviously well aware of. And we are working, the president is working with his healthcare policy team here at the White House, as well as Republicans on Capitol Hill, to find a solution.
He's working to find a solution. He wants to see a solution to lower healthcare costs.
He does.
But these subsidies are expiring at the end of the year. So what is the plan, and what is he going to do to put this in place in the next 2-3 weeks?
You'll hear more from the president and from the White House on that very soon. As for wanting a solution to lower healthcare costs, I'm glad you said it, because the president is doing just that. He has made unprecedented progress towards lowering healthcare costs in this country and drug prices. He's secured numerous most favored nation drug price deals, with many more to come. As you know, the One Big Beautiful Bill, the working family tax cut, significantly expanded access to health savings accounts for those on Obamacare. Again, a Democrat written program and approved program, which has led to higher healthcare costs in this country. So it goes back to the issue of affordability. Democrats are now pretending they want a solution to this issue, but they created the problem. The president and Republicans are currently coming up with creative solutions and ideas to lower healthcare costs for the American people, and you'll continue to hear more from them.
One of the things you have to say as well is, even when you give these subsidies to the insurance companies, they're not going to lower insurance prices. That means they're just not going to raise it the way they want to raise them. Nobody's insurance is getting cheaper. So just giving them the Obamacare subsidies and whatever that shit might be is not a cost cutting kind of thing. It might stave off a balloon payment, but it's not lowering healthcare costs. It's not. It's just not. I mean, the solution to that hasn't, nobody has said nothing. The Republicans inherited this and they knew this deadline was coming. But the American people, and I hate to say it, they only see what's in front of them. They don't give a shit about why we got here. Some do, they might take it up, but the only thing they're going to really care about is that the next bill they get is going to be higher than the bill they got before. And that's it. I mean, that's just the way it is. And, you could keep yelling, and everybody knows this Obamacare was under the Democrats, but that was then, and this is now. And you got to do it now. You really do.
That before these subsidies expire?
I just said you're going to continue to hear more from the president and Republicans on this issue, I'm sure. Sure, Bloomberg, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Caroline. The president said he was.
You know what? Here's the thing. And this is for all you MAGA people and the Republicans or conservatives or independents that lean conservative out there. Do you really think the Republicans are going to let these subsidies expire? Or are they going to cave by the end of this calendar year? That's the real question. I don't know what their plan might be, but they may haggle for an extension or some shit like that. But do you really think that they're going to let those subsidies expire? Do you really think so? I mean, I don't have the answer. But some way, shape, form, or fashion, how many days? What is the 11th? I think somewhere before Christmas, we're gonna hear they're gonna try to say how they're gonna save that deadline and try to save face at the same time. I think this. I really do. I just cannot see them just letting that shit expire, because the American people who are gonna be upside down more and further with their health care, they're not going to really care what the reason is. All they know is that you're president, this is your administration, and now they're paying twice as much for health insurance or whatever it might be. That's just the way people work. That's just the way it is.
Holding a call with the leaders of Thailand and Cambodia. Have those calls taken place? Is there a readout you can share?
The president has not yet engaged in those calls, and when he does, I'm sure you'll hear from him directly, as you always do, after foreign leader calls or from somebody here at the White House. I do know, with respect to the conflict in the peace deal in Thailand and Cambodia and some of the conflicts you've seen arise, reports of that in the press over the past couple of days, the president addressed it in Pennsylvania. The administration is obviously tracking this at the highest levels and is very much engaged. I spoke with Secretary Rubio about it this morning.
Will senior U.S. officials be meeting Saturday with European and Ukrainian officials to discuss the peace plan?
Look, the United States and the Trump administration continues to be very much engaged in trying to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end. President had a call with Europeans yesterday. His special envoy Witkoff and his team continue to talk with both sides literally as we speak. If there is a real chance of signing a peace agreement, if we feel like those meetings are worthy of someone on the United States' time this weekend, then we will send a representative. It's still up in the air whether we believe real peace can be accomplished and we can truly move the ball forward. The president is extremely frustrated with both sides of this war, and he's sick of meetings just for the sake of meeting. He doesn't want any more talk. He wants action. He wants this war to come to an end. And the administration has spent more than 30 hours, just in the past couple of weeks, meeting with the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Europeans and speaking with them as well. So we'll see about the meetings this weekend, and stay tuned.
I'll tell you this, I'll give Trump this. He cares more about the people dying in Ukraine and in Russia than Putin and Zelensky do, right? They really don't care. These, especially Putin. I say especially Putin. I think Zelensky is the same way, but I think there's different reasons. Like Putin is like some old crotchety oligarch who would probably let his whole population perish before he gives in. And Zelensky is, to me, is just like a glorified grifter who just happens to be the president of Ukraine, and people are just throwing money at him, and he's feigning this like he really cares about the Ukraine, while he's probably stashing away as much money as he possibly can for the inevitable, exile to somewhere else, right? And these guys are not interested in peace as long as they have a man left to die for their cause. It's simple as that, because there's no will there to end this war. There is no will, and Putin doesn't have any incentive to, and he understands that his position is only as good as Trump is in power, and he can't even rely on other Republicans to have the same position after Trump leaves. And he does know that if the Democrats get back in power, whatever agreements Trump made is out the window. He knows that. I mean, he absolutely knows that. And so does everybody else.
President Zelensky's latest proposal that was sent over yesterday.
He's aware of it, yes. Ed.
Thanks, Caroline. The Fed chairman, the president says that he's interviewing candidates. So I just want to be clear. So the pick has not been locked in. And could we get an announcement before Christmas?
I know every business outlet in the world is just chomping at the bit for a scoop or something on this Fed chair announcement. I'm not looking forward to that potential meetings this week with potential candidates. Look, as always, this is a decision the president himself is going to make. And I know there's a lot of reporting out there from anonymous sources who claim to know something. I would wait and see what the president himself does and announces, and I certainly won't be the one to get ahead of him on that.
On the economy, can I ask you about it?
Michael, go ahead.
On the next Fed chair, does the president have an expectation that his pick will lower interest rates next year to his liking?
I think the president has been quite clear about what he believes the Fed should be doing, which is lowering interest rates. I know there was a 1/4 point reduction this past week, and the president was pleased to see that, but he thinks more should be done. Philip.
On these advanced H200 chips, why is the president willing to allow China to have access to one of America's chief technological advantages?
Look, I will tell you just a couple of things. The president put out his own statement on this, which I do think highlights his exact thinking. What you see from the president on Truth Social is most of the time what you hear from the president behind closed doors privately. He told President Xi that NVIDIA will only be shipping H200 products to approved customers in China to allow under conditions that will allow for continued strong national security. The administration continues to maintain a strict export control regime, and we are ensuring that the Blackwell chip and other advanced technologies stay right here in America. And these H200 chips will only be sent to China after undergoing a security inspection here in the United States. Elizabeth.
City Mayor-elect Zoran Mondani put out a video recently telling immigrants in New York City they have the right to stand up to ICE. Are you concerned this will inspire New York City residents to resist ICE operations, and what will the Trump administration do if this happens?
The Trump administration is definitely concerned about the rise in violence, in attacks, and physical threats that we have seen against our brave men and women who wear the ICE uniform. Again, these are agents who are just simply doing their jobs. They are enforcing our nation's immigration laws, and we've seen more than a 1,000% increase in violent attacks on them and their families. They've been doxxed, they've been harassed. Many of them have been physically assaulted and attacked. So we condemn that wholeheartedly. I know the administration has done a lot to protect our ICE agents, and the president stands firmly behind them in conducting these enforcement operations. And there's a lot of talk from Democrat politicians in New York, but the Trump administration will continue to do our jobs in every state, and that's to remove illegal aliens and public safety threats from American communities.
These answers, those answers on immigration, on the sanctuary cities and states being an open rebellion against the federal government, they're not sufficient answers. And the reason why it's not sufficient is that the Republicans and the Trump administration, and I don't know why they're not doing this, there's some officials who should be in handcuffs and in jail, or at least being brought up on charges for sedition. And I don't care. I mean, if you read what sedition is, against the federal government, the definition is pretty broad. I mean, you don't have to be some kind of constitutional scholar to determine what sedition might be. And, maybe what Mondani did by saying, hey, know your rights, people should know their rights. So you could be mad that he's doing that. But there's some things that the federal government is not doing. Like the very first person who stands in front of a truck to try to stop it, there should be no patience with them. They should just be arrested right away. Just grab their asses and arrest them. And if you got to come in with buses and put 100 freaking people in a bus with handcuffs, that's what you should do. That's what you should do. You forget about being patient with these folks, man. Somebody throws a rock, hit them with the butt of your gun upside their head or something like that. I don't care. I mean, there's got to be something. I know they don't want a full-fledged riot out there, but if you listen to the Minnesota police chief, he all but threatened to have his police get an open battle with ICE agents. Just listen to his conference again. And so I'm telling you, the leniency that the federal government has done so far with these sanctuary cities is too much. It's their fault. The mayors, the governors, they should all be under investigation for sedition. And the Republicans should, they should challenge the right for a city or a state to call themselves sanctuary all the way up to the Supreme Court. I mean, there's got to be a case there. Get yourself a few activists, right-wing judges, to put a full-wide, nationwide injunction against sanctuary cities in the first place. It's a little too late, but they should still do it. It's just so frustrating to see how powerless they talk a lot of big game, but they're not using the levies of power to really put these guys, under the gun. Like this dude who tried to turn the military against the president, hell with the bullshit. Court-martial his ass. Just do it. You win, lose, or draw. Make a spectacle out of Kelly. Make a spectacle out of her. Ilhan Omar, stop talking about deporting her. She's an American citizen now, but you could kick her ass out of Congress. Get her ass out of Congress as an open enemy to the state, because that's what she is. So they just keep talking. Where's the perp walks? Karoline, and where's the reporters asking about where the goddamn perp walks?
I'll go to the gentleman who's very eager, and then to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Obviously, Jasmine Crockett, who the president has openly criticized, just entered Texas' Senate race. I asked Mike Johnson, who said that Texas largely supports the president. Crockett, on the other hand, says that Trump is an example of extremism. She says that her support is a referendum on Trump. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. And has Trump made any statements since she's announced her candidacy?
Not to my knowledge, as you know, from the White House podium, as a government employee, I'm not privy to comment on future elections, but I do think the president has made his thoughts on Ms. Crockett quite clear, and I do believe he thinks she is wholly unqualified for the office that she is seeking. Joey.
Yeah, thanks, Karoline. A federal judge today ordered the immediate release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from ICE detention. Does the White House have a response to that, and does the administration plan to appeal that decision?
Absolutely. The White House, the administration opposed this activism from a judge who is really acting as a judicial activist, which we've unfortunately seen in many cases across the country. Abrego Garcia is present in our country illegally. He is a proven human trafficker. He is a proven gang member. The administration has evidence of that. And as you saw from the Department of Homeland Security, they issued a statement saying they'll continue to fight this legal battle in court.
So, see, this is the frustrating thing, right? And she said it. The only question that should be on the floor is this guy in our country legally or not? That's it. All the rest of it is bullshit. I don't care if he doesn't have to be a gang member. He doesn't have to be a human trafficker. He doesn't have to be any of those freaking things, man. Is he in this country legally or not? And if the answer is no, then he should be deported. That's it. And you just, so all the rest of this shit is noise. And they keep going down this, this pathway of saying that these guys are the worst of the worst. Yeah, some of them are. But the goal is to get illegal immigrants out of the country. And it doesn't matter whether they did all these despicable things or not. Did they come in this goddamn country legally or not? And if you can prove that they came in this not through the ports of entry, not to, where they were vetted and all this stuff, or got a green card or a visa or something that's compliant to our laws, then they're here illegally. That's it. It's just so frustrating to hear her come up here and all the Republicans keep talking the same bullshit. What's the law? If you are not in compliance with the laws of this country to be here, then you're subject to deportation. And that's it. Really, that's it.
Questions. I have one on Venezuela to follow up, but first on affordability, since we were talking about the economy at the beginning. If the economy is as strong as the president has said it is, then why is he telling parents 2 weeks before Christmas that they should only buy 2 or 3 dolls for their children?
What the president is saying is that if we want products made right here in America, if we want them to be made from American small businesses, which is a large part of the reason the president has effectively implemented tariffs, then we're going to have better quality products right here in the United States. Maybe you'll pay $1 or $2 more, but you will get better quality and you'll be supporting your fellow Americans by buying American. And that's what the president was saying. Again, with respect to affordability, every economic metric, Caitlin, and I wish you would report more on it, does in fact show that the economy is getting better and brighter than where it was under the previous administration. I will repeat, inflation as measured by the overall CPI has slowed to an average 2.5% pace. Real wages are increasing, roughly $1,200 for the average worker. Gas prices are down in almost every single state across the country. Again, in 22 states, it's below 275. You look at the tax cuts, those are going to go into effect next year. So the best is yet to come. The president is digging our country out of the economic hole that the previous administration put us in.
And you should just tell her, you know what, maybe y'all should buy your kids a couple less dolls. They only going to play for them for one day. Listen, buy them a good doll that they could be happy with. And everybody's in this cost-cutting mode. And everything's coming down, and it takes time. So maybe next Christmas you could splurge. This Christmas, be a little frugal. And just let Caitlin Collins, whatever her name, eat that one.
That's what he's talking about.
It was a year ago, as you know, and grocery prices have been up. So we've covered the economy, but there's mixed signals in terms of what that looks like. But on
inflation is down from where it was. As measured by the overall CPI, it has slowed to an average 2.5% pace. This is down from what the president inherited. The president inherited 2.9% in January. Today, it's at about 2.5%. So we're trending in the right direction with more to come. And I would remind you, when President Trump left office in his first term, inflation was 1.7%. And the previous administration jacked it up to a record high 9%. So again, in 10 months, the president has clawed us out of this hole. He's kept it low at 2.5%. And we believe that number is going to continue to decline, especially as energy and oil prices continue to decline as well.
Maybe it wasn't high under Biden. They're just saying it's not.
Well, nobody reported on it being high under Biden. My predecessor was standing at this podium, but now you want to ask me a lot of questions about it, which I'm happy to answer. But I will just add, there's a lot more scrutiny on this issue from this press corps than there was. Well, and the previous administration said that too. My predecessor stood up at this podium and she said inflation doesn't exist. She said the border was secure, and people like you just took her at her word, and those were two utter lies. Everything I'm telling you is the truth, backed by real factual data, and you just don't want to report on it because you want to push untrue narratives about the president. Go ahead. I'm not going to take your call. Go ahead.
Is the White House optimistic about the upcoming redistricting vote in Indiana and what happens if it fails?
We'll see how the vote plays out. That's a political matter and frankly a legal one, and I won't comment on it here. Brian.
Thank you, Karoline. I'm going to go back to the Fed. I have two topics I just want to address with you. The first one on the Fed. The president did say yesterday that he was meeting with Kevin Warsh.
This is your favorite story in the world, Brian.
It is our favorite story. The president said yesterday he was meeting with Kevin Warsh to talk about the Fed chair, like interview for a Fed chair role. Can you just say how that interview went with him?
I won't comment on private meetings
Of
without the
course,
president's
it's not going to say it, man. It's not going to talk about that.
The Netflix Warner Brothers deal. The president did address this also yesterday. He said that he believes that the sale of CNN should be attached to that deal with Netflix or with Paramount if anything happens down the road with them. Can you just explain what the president's planning to do going forward to continue to make that case similar to what he made yesterday?
Well, I think the president's comments yesterday about the sale of CNN and new leadership is evidenced by my exchange with the CNN reporter in this room. Their viewership has gone down, their ratings has declined, and I think the president rightfully believes that network would benefit from new ownership. With respect to this deal, he has great respect for both companies who are bidding against one another, and I won't weigh in any further than that. In the back, go ahead.
Thank you.
I wasn't calling on either of you, but I'll take both your questions and then to you. Go ahead.
I have two questions. One is South Korea, one on the Japan. First question, the recent U.S. South Korea trade fact sheet made no mention of agricultural products. Does the United States want to completely open its rice and beef market to South Korea? And second question on Japan. China is using its military power to surround Okinawa, Japan. Is the United States concerned about the military conflict between China and Japan? And what action will the United States take?
Okay. To your first question on South Korean beef or beef export to South Korea, I will check with our trade team and we will get you an answer on that. To your second question with respect to Japan and China, the president has a phenomenal relationship with the new Prime Minister of Japan, as you know. He was pleased to meet her when we went to Asia a couple of months ago, and they have spoken a few times since. They continue to be engaged with one another, and Japan is a great ally of the United States, as evidenced by their personal relationship and our continued trade relations with Japan. With respect to China, the president also has a good working relationship with President Xi, which he believes is a good thing for our country. And he believes that the United States should be in a position to have a good working relationship with China while maintaining our very strong alliance with Japan. Go ahead.
Yesterday, President Trump was speaking about drug production in Colombia. He said that the president of Colombia better wise up or he's going to be next. What was he meaning exactly? And the other thing is that President Gustavo Petro of Colombia responded to that statement by issuing a formal invitation to President Trump to go to Colombia and to see firsthand how the authorities in Colombia are fighting against drugs. Do you think that President Trump would consider that?
No. Well, that's very interesting. I hadn't heard the news about that invitation. I will let the president speak directly to it on whether or not that's something he would entertain. But as for his comments yesterday towards President Petro, he has been saying some very alarming and frankly insulting things towards the United States of America, and the president doesn't like it. Yes, in the blue.
Karoline?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. The president's been spotted out and about a number of times with bandages on his hands. Could you please explain what that is about? Secondly, he noted on Truth Social the other day that he had aced 3 cognitive tests. Could you please clarify when those tests took place?
I can do that at a later date. I obviously don't have that in front of me. The president has spoken about that quite extensively throughout the years. As for the bandages on the hand, we've also given you an explanation for that in the past. The president is literally constantly shaking hands. The Oval Office is like Grand Central Terminal. He is meeting with more people than any of you even know about on a daily basis. He's also on a daily aspirin regimen, which is something his physical examinations has said in the past as well, which can contribute to that bruising that you see.
Thank you, Caroline. Back to that oil tanker. Just want to know, was this a one-off, or is it safe to say the administration is taking a more active look at the oil industry in Venezuela, whether targeting other oil shifts or perhaps Venezuelan oil production facilities in Venezuela?
Well, I won't broadcast any future actions from the administration, but I will just reiterate that the Trump administration is executing on the president's sanction policies and the sanction policies of the United States. And we're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which will fuel narco terrorism of rogue and illegitimate regimes around the world. Andrew?
Karoline, two for you. First, when the president announced the farm relief program the other day, Secretary Rollins afterwards, right out there, told us that the program would be paid for by the Commodity Credit Corporation, an existing program. The president keeps saying that it's being paid for by tariff revenue. Why does he keep saying that if the secretary who's running the program says that's not the case? And also about his doll comments from the other night. The president's a billionaire. He's probably the wealthiest person to ever serve as president. Is it a good look for him to be telling parents, oh, you should only buy, $2 or $3 for your kids when he's one of the wealthiest people in the country right now?
Do you think the people in that room in Pennsylvania who the president was speaking to don't know the president's a billionaire?
Mhm.
I think that's a very well-established fact. And actually, I think it's one of the many reasons they reelected him back to this office, because he's a businessman who understands the economy and knows how to fix it. And he's doing it right now, just like he did in his first term.
Yeah, but the answer is no. The answer is, I mean, sometimes when you give these idiots like food, bad food, they're going to eat it. Just like him playing around saying he's running for a third term, and then the news cycle is talking about him doing a third term, and everybody knows it's not going to happen. He's not even going to try because it's not constitutional. And and it's funny how people keep saying that the things he's doing that's illegal, and I believe that he has listened to and complied with every unlawful order from a judge since he's been president. He just gets them overturned. So I wish the Supreme Court would get some of these other things out of the way, but I think the best is yet to come. So anyway, let's go.
Sure, go ahead. To the gentleman behind you, Andrew, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Karoline. On Gaza, we heard the president say yesterday that the Board of Peace members are going to be announced early next year. What is the administration doing to move the parties in the region closer toward phase 2 of his peace plan for Gaza?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight what a success it is that 10 months into the president's administration, you're asking me about a peace plan in Gaza, because that's a legitimate reality on the ground right now in the region. And it's only because of this president's leadership that was able to take place, that all the living hostages were returned. All but one body of the deceased hostages has been returned, and we're still, of course, working on the last one. As for this next phase of the peace process, there is a lot of quiet planning that's going on behind the scenes right now for phase 2 of the peace deal. And when the United States is ready to make those announcements public on the Board of Peace, the ISF, and the Palestinian technocratic government, we will be making those announcements at the appropriate time. But the reason that the negotiators and the teams on the ground have been rather quiet about this is because I spoke with them this morning. They are trying to be deliberate and thoughtful about this. Peace in Gaza, in the Palestinian Strip, is something, the Gaza Strip rather, is something that people have been trying to accomplish for 70 years. So, this is a complex problem, and this administration wants to be very thoughtful about it, and we want to ensure an enduring and lasting peace. And when those announcements are ready, they will be made. Sure.
There have been reports that Vladimir Putin called Maduro today to reaffirm his support. I wanted to ask if it's concerning to the president that Putin has given such a warm embrace to Maduro.
I don't think that would be concerning to the president at all, no. I'll let him speak on it further.
Spoken to Putin about that?
He has not spoken to President Putin today, and I understand that call took place this morning, so the answer is no.
Question about the ACA, but just first very quickly clarifying Caitlin's question. You acknowledged that CPI in January when you took office was 3%, and in September, the last month for which we have data, it was also 3%, so inflation.
No, it's 2.5%.
Not in September, it was 3%.
It's 2.5%, the average CPI right now. I have it in front of me. In President Trump's first 8 months in office, inflation as measured by the overall consumer price index has slowed to a 2.5 average pace. This is down from the 2.9% inherited in January.
January is 1 month.
Kelly, in the back.
Can I ask you about the ACA really quickly? There are a number of plans that are floating around on the Hill right now having to do with these premium subsidies that are about to expire. Which plan does the White House support?
Again, I have told you now a few times that the president and Republicans will continue to unveil creative ideas and solutions to the healthcare crisis that was created by Democrats. And I know Chuck Schumer is putting up a vote today. This is a political show vote. Chuck Schumer is not sincerely interested in lowering healthcare costs for the American people. He's putting this vote on the floor knowing that it will fail so he can have another talking point that he can throw around without any real plan or action. If Chuck Schumer actually wanted to lower healthcare costs, I'm sure the president would welcome him and his entire Democrat caucus to a legitimate coordination on the president's policies of bringing down drug prices, these most favored nation deals. Why hasn't Chuck Schumer ever come out in support of those? Those are going to legitimately, they already are, lower drug prices for the American people, and not a word from Chuck Schumer on it. So I think that just proves this is completely political. Kelly, go ahead.
On Venezuela, does the president consider the seizure of the oil tanker an escalation or a step towards war with Venezuela?
I think the president considers the seizure of the oil tanker as effectuating the administration's sanction policies, which I've already discussed previously.
Potential invasion or potential land strikes in Venezuela aligned with the president's supporters, the MAGA base, does it risk the potential for a prolonged war and U.S. troops involved in that?
Prolonged war is definitely not something this president is interested in. He's been very clear about that. He wants peace. He also wants to see the end of illegal drugs being trafficked into the United States and taking the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans across our country. And he's thinking about that every day here at the White House. With every drug vote that is taken out by this administration, we are saving thousands of lives by deterring those drugs and stopping those drugs from flowing into our country. You will all, excuse me, you'll all hear, excuse me, you will all see the president tonight. He'll be making remarks at the Congressional Christmas Ball, which will be taking place here at the White House. And later this afternoon, he will be signing some congressional bills and executive orders that we, as always, will keep you apprised of. Thanks, guys.
You know, it's funny that only up to the end they started talking about the blowing up the boats. And I'm surprised that nobody asked that question about, you know, releasing the full video and all that. As a guy who used to work for the government, the American people don't have the right to see everything. That's why we have classifications. I mean, you know, you don't have the right to see everything, right? I mean, I know we hope we do, we think we do, but you don't have the right to see everything. Right, it's up to the discretion, really, of the powers that be to say, hey, this is what we're going to tell you, and this is what we're going to show you. Now, you can have the right to believe or not believe it, but the biggest issue I have with the liberals and the Democrats on this issue is that it's clear that drug traffickers have laid waste to our country in terms of all the addictions and all of that kind of stuff. Thousands and thousands, maybe millions over the year, right, of people have died. Lives have been destroyed. And we're going to care about a couple of guys and you know, trying to deliver more drugs. That shit doesn't drive with me at all. You know, talking about Geneva Convention and all that other bullshit. You know, if you're an enemy of the state, period. You know, so from what I understand, they were well within their rights. Get off of Pete Hegseth's, whatever, how you pronounce his last name. You know, they hate that guy. But to me, you know, after I saw him deliver that speech to his generals, I'm saying, man, this is the guy, man. You got to be in shape. You can't, you know, you got to have some decorum about yourself. And it doesn't matter whether he was a drunk womanizer before he got that position. At least not to me. As long as he's not drunk and as long as he's not womanizing now, you know, and let's just move forward. You know, I like him cleaning up the armed forces, saying you got to have this kind of standards and minimum. Man, come on. You know, you think they're having discussions over all of this shit in North Korea or China on how their soldiers feel? No, they're not having those discussions. They're not. You're either going to do what we say or your life is over. So anyway, another good press conference. Our girl's done, so I'm done too. I just wish they would have a little bit more receipts. Yeah, I wish I could say his name better. I wish I would have a little bit. I wish the Republicans would give us a little bit more receipts on how they're actually fighting back against the liberals using not lawfare, like people like Letitia James and shit like that. That's not what I care about. I think there should be a full-fledged assault on, and when I say assault, a legal assault on all sanctuary cities and all sanctuary city leaders and mayors. There should be a complete assault on all of them. And we should make their lives a living legal hell for what they're doing. Because I bet you, and I'm not this kind of historian, but I bet you that the sanctuary cities have declared open rebellion against the federal government. And that's not so unlike what the southern slavery states did that started the Civil War. They started out with sedition. And I think they tried to start printing their own money, right? And that's probably where they went completely overboard. But, they were in open rebellion against the federal government. And so are the sanctuary states. And that rebellion is playing itself out in the streets every single day until now that they're threatening to harm legally authorized federal law enforcement from doing their job. Somebody should be going to jail. Mayor Wu, Brandon Johnson, anybody who's standing in the way, Mondani, and physically, if they did one slip up, AOC, they should all be under investigation, period. So that's just the way I see it. Anyway, enough of me. Thanks, Catelia, for dropping by. Maybe I'm a little too radical for that, but the Republicans talk too much shit. I want to see some perp walks. I want to see some people really get their lives thrown upside down for what they're doing. I really do. Oh, man. Let me see what you say. Yeah. Stay tuned for the next one. Every time Karoline comes up, I got a rant. But, some other people are starting to say something I'm going to start to react to as well. If I get another one with Stephen Miller, I'd be looking forward to that too. Anyway, have a good night. I'll see you later. All right. Enjoy. God bless. I'm over and out.